In this lesson, we will finally get to fixing that bug that we have found in one of the previous lessons related to stopwatch. So if I'll start tracking the time and then switch to a different tab, making our application inactive, and then if I'll try to get back to our application, as we can see, the stopwatch was automatically stopped, even though we have left it in the running state before switching to a different tab. So let's see what's going on in here. I'm gonna switch over to the editor and open up the main module of the application, which is main.js. So right here we can see that right before our application is loaded, we're calling this function loadState in order to load the state of our application from the local storage. And then we have this if conditional, which checks if we have previously left one of the stopwatches in the running state, we should automatically start it. And then we are registering listener to listen for when the tab with our application will be either active or inactive. But as we can see, that function start timeline item timer that is supposed to automatically start the timer is never called again, regardless of how many times we're gonna make tab with our application active or inactive. And that is why when we are coming back to our application from a different tab, timer is not automatically started. So we're gonna rewrite some of the logic in this file a little bit differently. So let's just use the new function sync state, which we're about to create soon, and this function will be responsible to load as well as to save the state of our application to local storage. And whether to load or to save the state, it will decide based on the first parameter we're about to pass into this function. The first parameter will get the value of the following expression. So when tab with our application will be active, this parameter will turn true, otherwise false. And now let's open up storage.js and declare the new function. So I'm going to export the new function with the name sync_state, which is going to receive one parameter, let's call it shouldLoad, with a default value of true. And then based on this parameter, we will decide whether to load the state or to save it by using the following ternary expression, like so. But besides loading or saving, we also have to decide when we should start timeline item timer or stop it. So in here I'm gonna check if we currently have active timeline item, in other words, if we have previously left our application when one of our timers was running. If this is true, then we'll use another ternary expression based on shouldLoad variable as well. That means if we are currently loading the state and at the same time we have active timeline item, we're supposed to start timeline item timer. So let's call the function start timeline item timer. Otherwise, we have to stop it. Here we're calling the function stop timeline item timer, and both of these functions have to know for which timeline item we are starting or stopping the timer. So let's pass active timeline item as the first parameter into both of these functions. Now let's import all necessary parts in this module. Let's go back to main.js and import newly created function sync_state. So now we no longer need this conditional. Let's remove this part of code. And let's just go over all this logic once again. So this listener will be triggered whenever tab with our application will become either active or inactive. And just to let sync_state function know whether tab with our application has become active or inactive, we're passing the result of this expression as the first parameter. And in here, based on that expression, if tab with our application has become active, we're loading the state from the local storage, and in addition, starting the timer. In case we had stopwatch running before making the tab with our application inactive. And in another scenario, when parameter shouldLoad will be false, that means tab with our application has become inactive, we're saving the state of our application to local storage instead of loading it, and then also stopping the timeline item timer in case we had one running. So the main part of the functionality is ready. Now I'm gonna go back to main.js and remove all unused imports from here. And now just to simplify our testing, let's just add some console log statements into a few functions. I'm gonna add one inside of save state, as well as load state. And also let's just add a couple more into start timeline item timer function, as well as stop timeline item timer. So now let's see what logs we're gonna see in the console when we refresh our application. So here we have two logs. Firstly, before refreshing the application, the state was saved into the local storage, and right after we pressed refresh button, we have loaded the state, which is indicated by the following load state statement. And if I'll manually start the timer, sure enough we're gonna see the log start timeline item timer. And if we'll try to refresh the page while stopwatch is running, firstly we'll see the log from stop timeline item timer function because we had to stop the timer before refreshing the page. And after our application is loaded back again, we're kind of resuming all previously saved state, as well as resuming state of the timer, because we have to start this timer automatically. So that means that anytime we're gonna make tab with our application inactive or close the application completely, next time tab with an application becomes active again, or it is opened again, our stopwatch should start automatically. Let's make sure. I'm gonna start stopwatch and then switch over to a different tab. Let's switch back to the tab with our application again, and this time we see that the stopwatch was started automatically. So everything is working as expected. Let's just go back to the editor and remove all previously added console log statements from all these functions. Link to source code of this application will be in the video description.